we pay a lot for our internet. It's usually reliable. We're in Barcelona, but anyway, even anything in Spain is by logic unreliable. So um, it's recording. We need to get Deanna back in the back studio. What's going on, Deanna? I'm going to start off the show. I'm going to give you an introduction, Brian, that you deserve. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of R&D Meets. As you know, we dive deep into the stories and journeys behind some truly fascinating individuals. Today, I'm thrilled to have another one of those, someone who's not just balancing, but thriving in two very different worlds. By day, he navigates the fast-paced, high-stakes world of stock trading, but by night, he transforms into a country rock artist, blending the grit of rock with the soul of country music. Hailing from the south side of Chicago, I'm delighted to be joined by Brian Meulen this evening. How are you, Brian?
Ryan, thank you so much. That was a great introduction. I like it.
You like that? Well, I'm only halfway through.
Wow. You're already very generous.
That's what we're here for. Despite, you see, I always make a mess of the introduction. The last episode with Rick Gordon was a nightmare. I was close to putting in an alternative because I stumbled over my words about 12 times. So despite starting your musical journey just a few years ago, Brian has already picked up thousands of monthly listeners on Spotify and is already a hugely popular member of our indie community. So today we're going to explore the man behind the music, his early life, his journey from rock to country, his experiences as a stock trader, maybe dive into a little bit of politics, and what the future holds for your career. So really, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you with me, Brian.
Thank you guys so much.
We became fans of yours with the She Left Me With the Whiskey. I love that song. It's been on repeat in our playlist at R&D Towers a lot for the last 3 months. So really, it's so cool to get you on the show.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the support too, and I have gotten some really good support overseas. Couple of UK radio stations I have to mention. Jim's Rockin' Boots and Country Over Easy. Mark Dare and Jim from Jim's Rockin' Boots. Just they've been incredible supporters of mine as well. So sometimes I feel actually that was my first radio play was in the UK.
Wow, nice. Yeah, it seems to be a lot of American artists get exposure in the UK almost sometimes before they do in the US. It's a good way to break in. Can't think of specific examples, but there's quite a few like that were really successful in the UK first. Kings of Leon, I remember them. They got big in the UK before the US.
Oh wow, yeah, they're a big band.
They were definitely a big band. I don't know about them now. I've not followed their progress. I guess
they're still touring.
Famous.
I know somebody.
They're still huge.
Yeah, I know somebody just went to a concert of theirs.
Yeah, I saw them live 21 years ago by accident at a festival. My friend was like, "Oh, you've got to come check out this band, Kings of Leon. They're really good." Okay, and they were awesome live, but then they got a bit too commercial.
Yeah.
I'd say. So, as with every guest, I want to go back in time. Obviously, you've got a lot to share with us, Brian, being as that you have such an interesting career. I'm hoping it's not too repetitive, this format of going back in time with people, but I'm going to stick with it and try to discover, like I said, the man behind the music, which also reminds me of another thing that I have to mention. You're our 7th guest, and they've all been white men. So at the risk of being branded something, I think I'm going to have to get some females on R&D Meets sooner or later. So if there's anyone out there, any ladies listening who want to be on the show, I think we're going to have to do that, because this guy just likes to speak to old white guys or older white guys. You're not. How old are you, Brian? I think you're about the same age as me, I'm guessing.
I'm going to guess I'm significantly older than you.
But maybe I just look young.
Maybe I just look young. I'm 49.
49. Okay. Well, you're not significantly older. I'm 42 in October.
All right.
So a little bit older. I thought you were about 45. I had you as 45.
I appreciate that too.
I had you as 45. Like Deanna, exactly. I based that on my research of who you liked growing up. musically. I thought, this is Diana's era. He's got to be around Diana's age. Tell me, you grew up in the south side of Chicago. What was that like? I've never been to Chicago, but it looks like an amazing city.
Yeah, no, so Chicago was very nice. It was much nicer back then than it is now. Um, but yeah, if you went into the city, it was nice. It's still a very clean city, very nice city. There's a lot to do. Um, you know, I did a lot of things when I was young with motorcycles and things like that. And we always rode into the city.
Hmm.
But there was some spots where you just never were able to get to. It was unsafe. And it's kind of that way now. Kind of a lot of everywhere. I still work in the city 3 days a
Yeah.
week. So I go in there and try to get out as quickly as possible.
Hmm.
But
Big city, no? How many? 10 million? I'm guessing.
what's that?
I'm saying how many people are in Chicago? Like a 10 million?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look. I'd have to look.
I didn't research that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's one of your biggest cities in the US.
yeah, there's significant problems, now with homelessness and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And they brought a bunch of the immigrants in there too. So some of the shelters are overrun. And it's gotten a little sad. After COVID, some of the stuff didn't come back quite.
Yeah.
It did as vibrant. Some of the things have changed. It's still a great city though. It was a good place to grow up. Very interesting. I feel like I got to see like so much different music stuff that I didn't even
Hmm.
realize because I wasn't a big, I wasn't a musician back then. But I got to see things like the Aragon Ballroom that is really iconic, and I saw Soundgarden. I saw
Wow.
Chris Cornell there.
Chris Cornell. Diana loves Chris
And
Cornell.
yeah, and I got to see Limp Bizkit open
Uh,
for a no-name Limp Bizkit back then,
yeah.
open for Chris Cornell, and then the World Theater out in Tinley Park, where they started the Ozfest and
Hmm.
Lollapalooza
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So I got exposed to a lot of really cool music. And then of course Chicago had a huge jazz scene that I didn't really even know much about either. My grandfather used to tell me about it because my grandfather was a clarinetist
Hmm.
in a jazz band, which again, like I said, I was not a musician, so I never really thought anything of it. But some of these things I recollect now, and it all comes back to me, and it's like, wow, what a great city, a great place to grow up around
Yeah, for
music
sure.
and culture.
Um, yeah, I saw in your bio that you liked Motley Crue, Metallica,
Oh,
Nirvana. I saw you with a Nirvana t-shirt, I believe, as well. So I think you were a fan of them.
oh yeah, I very well may have. Yeah, I wasn't so much into grunge. I was actually a little bit mad at grunge back in the day because we all blamed grunge for killing hair metal. But I mean,
Hmm.
you read about it now. Honestly, it was Garth Brooks and country
Hmm.
music that killed hair metal. Garth Brooks was selling 3 times what the biggest hair metal band was at the time, and I guess we didn't
Crazy.
realize, and we thought maybe grunge and Nirvana and everything was big, but they were nothing compared to country music back then.
Hmm.
So
Well, it's got a huge market for sure. No, I was just
yeah, I
talking to
still enjoy it.
I said to you earlier that I wasn't really a country music fan, but it's kind of untrue. Like I love Kenny Rogers. I love Kenny Rogers.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I'll tell you, if you ask me about old school country, I kind of grew up and I can recollect a lot of my dad, kind of with easy listening type stuff.
mm,
The Eagles, Leonard Skinner, Kenny Rogers. I remember some of that stuff in the car, but I never really, was a huge fan of country music till recently.
yeah.
So even some of the Garth Brooks stuff and George Strait and some of that stuff, Randy Travis, even I won't, if you ask me about that, I probably won't even know.
What was the first concert you went to?
Okay, so the first concert I went to was at the World Music Theater in Tinley Park, just outside of Chicago. and it was the Clash of the Titans concert. So we had Anthrax, Megadeth, and Slayer, and Alice in Chains.
Wow.
Lane Staley opened for that group. Still one of my best memories as far as a concert goes. It was incredible. And then looking back all these years to get to see again, I saw Chris Cornell at the Aragon, but I got to see Lane Staley at the World Music Theater, and those guys are gone now, and it's a great memory.
Yes, concerts are. I was trying to think there. What I asked you that question, but then I couldn't really think of the answer for myself. I'm not really sure what the first concert I went to.
Well, I remember because I don't really go to a lot of concerts. I just being completely honest.
I haven't been to one in a while. I'll tell you that.
No, I haven't, except for my wife. I've been to some of my wife played at Soldier Field about a month ago.
Who's she played at Soldier Field?
Yeah, my wife is Annie Vander. Yeah.
So she's successful, very successful.
She's up and coming. Yeah, she's a very up and coming country artist. And that was her first, that was probably her biggest gig to date, was Soldier Field. She got to play country night.
Huge stadium, no? That's a huge stadium.
Yeah, well, I mean, she didn't play in the stadium. Well, I take that back. She played in the stadium,
but there's an arena
in the gate, right? She didn't play on the field. She played country night for the Chicago Fire soccer team that plays there.
Wow, I know, and that's how I know Soldier Field. That's from my extensive knowledge of MLS. I follow the MLS.
Oh, dude, that's interesting. That was the first soccer game I got to go to.
Chicago Fire aren't too hot right now.
No, but I think it was actually the country night was the first time first game they won for the season, or first in a very long time. So
yeah, because they were one of the founding teams in MLS in the 90s, but the last few years they've been one of the worst teams in the competition. I know that.
Yeah, and I think they were the Sting before that. I got to go to the Sting at UIC at the United Center at some point when I was a kid as well.
Yeah, because they had soccer in the US in the late 70s and 80s, and it died.
Yeah,
that's an incredible story.
They shared the stadium with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
because it was hugely popular briefly. In that era, they had Pele, Beckenbauer, and they had all these kind of legendary players come and play. So I think there was a lot of money pumped into it, and then it just burst. The bubble burst really quickly.
Yeah, and I think they're trying again, but
it's definitely the MLS now is real high quality. I mean, it's not the best league in the world, but it's in the top 10, which is pretty good considering where it's come from in like 30 years.
Cool.
But we'll go back to music. I'll go back to music. Deanna will be like, "Why are you talking about football on RanD Meets?" Tell me, so you've kind of like transitioned from rock and metal to more country. How did that transpire over time that you developed those? I mean, we all have different genres that we appreciate, but it's an interesting blend that you've got going.
Yeah, I really had to. I have to credit that to my wife. When she started, both of us kind of. She's put down music for a very long time until COVID, and then started picking it back up again. And I pretty much learned from scratch during COVID. And she decided very early on that she was going to be a country artist. Some of her influences are Pink, but also like Shania Twain.
I like Shania Twain.
So she really has a lot of great mixture in her genres and her sound, but she is pretty loyal to country music. So I was just exposed to it through her, and I think some musical stuff I got a little fed up with some of the politics, and country music seemed to align with me better and kind of hit home. And I was introduced to artists like Hardy and Brantley Gilbert, Warren Zeters. They're a little bit on the harder side, heavier side of country, maybe a little metal influence in there. and some of that resonated with me. So yeah.
That's interesting. I will need to check out those bands that you mentioned because I'm not too familiar with that kind of genre with like a metal influence with country.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Definitely interesting. Yeah, you mentioned Hardy and Morgan and Wallen. What is it about their style that kind of resonates with you most?
Yeah.
I mean,
So I
I
think when
actually
Hardy,
listened to one of them just before we came on,
yeah, so I
and
think
he was
Hardy, when he writes with Morgan Wallen, is a little bit more mainstream popish, but he does have some deeper track stuff that gets a little heavy. And some of that stuff was kind of really, it was resonating with me,
hmm,
you know, more than the Morgan Wallen stuff. Not that I don't like it. I still, I still enjoy Morgan Wallen, and I really like that new Luke Combs song that he wrote for Twister. It's got that nice drop C sharp riff
hmm.
in there, and it's really heavy. I dig that kind
I
of
love
that.
I love country music. Well, not country music, but I love music that tells a story. Country music often does that, very elegantly. The Gambler, just I love that song. I'm not a big country man, but that song has been one of my favorites for over 25 years. I used to play poker as a young man, and we were always singing these songs between hands. My
Yeah.
friend was always quoting lyrics, between hands. These cheeky Scottish guys. Um, so tell me, I want to find out about a little bit more about your career today. You're a stock trader by day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me what that involves specifically, because I'm not really terribly knowledgeable in this area. I
Yeah.
seem to say
So,
that a lot on this program, but uh,
so it's a lot to explain. I mean, a lot of people think of stock traders, either, they think of the movie Wall Street with the people in the pits screaming, yelling, or they think about, day traders or somebody like Boiler Room, the movie Boiler Room, Ben Affleck. Um, for me, I've had a little bit of a tamer life. Now, I had started on the floor of the options exchange in Chicago. So I have been in those pits screaming and yelling.
yeah, I was
But
curious
I
about
always kind of wanted an upstairs, type job. And I was, I had the opportunity to interview for the company that I work for now about 25 years ago. And we run mutual fund money. So, we've got investors that are either high net worth or institutions like pension funds, countries, sovereign wealth funds, things like that. Actually, Nordea in the in the Nordics is a big investor in our company, and so is PGGM in the Netherlands.
that.
Um, but yeah, we run mutual fund money, and it's mostly dividend income type stuff. And so when the portfolio managers of the funds want in and out of those stocks that they're switching between their investments, I'm the one that gets to execute the trades. So, I get to do large execution trades, sometimes north of 1 million shares.
Mm.
It takes days, sometimes weeks even, to move that kind of stock. And I've been doing that for 25 years. It's, now it's global
Excuse me.
because there's tons of investments overseas. When I first started, we were basically US only. But now I work all sorts of hours and
Must be
get to see all sorts of countries.
quite a stressful role, I would say.
It is. It's
Excuse me.
sometimes you get numb to it. I've been doing it so long. Somebody
Mm.
has to do it. So
How do you balance that with trying to make music after a long day on the floor or above the floor, as you said?
yeah, well, I'll tell you, it was easy during COVID. This was my office
Mm.
during COVID, and you could see some of it, in the background here with my guitars. And this is kind of what I built, when I was going through COVID and I got to work from home. Now I work from home 2 days a week. I'm in the city 3. So, and the
That
job that
helps.
I have is not, it's kind of hit or miss. Like,
Mm.
we're not always, doing a lot, but sometimes when we are doing something, it is a lot. So, it's on or off. So we did have some time, some downtime. I was able to do things. And then, especially during COVID, I got rid of a 3-hour commute, and I was able to,
Both ways or
gain
both ways?
both
No,
ways. Yeah. About an hour and a half each
yeah.
way to get to the city from here.
Still bad enough. Definitely bad enough.
Yeah, it's bad enough. Yeah. I guess, if I was in New York, it would probably be a pretty normal thing, go from Jersey to downtown, New
Hmm.
York. But,
No, it's
yeah,
killer. It's too much. I could never.
it-
I hope I never have to go back to that because I have worked at home for about, well, 5 years almost. But I was working just a little bit before COVID started. I was already working at home. Um, and I wouldn't mind going out occasionally. I get stuck in this house a little bit too much. But
right.
at the same time, that commute 3 hours a day, it's too much. I used to do that when I was young, and then it killed me almost. And if you're
Yeah.
doing something you enjoy, it's moderately okay. But if it's to something you don't enjoy,
Yeah.
it's just like
And even
a
still,
hell.
it's a lot.
Yeah, and it's just every day. And no, I think it's much better. At least that was one of the benefits of COVID, that we transitioned to a society where we can work more from our homes, because people
Yeah.
don't need. It's just such a waste of time a lot of the time in the office.
Right. Right. Yeah. They wanted me to come back to kind of teach the newer generation. But
Mm.
sometimes I think too, they learn just as well over Zoom and sharing screens and things like that. But, yeah, they wanted us in the office for that and the collaboration. So we go back 3 days a week.
Do you ever see yourself giving that up and focusing on music?
I mean, well, that's always the dream, right? Is,
Right.
if you do something, something fun. And yeah, I guess if the opportunity came to me, I would probably jump on it.
Well, I
Um,
mean, just from playing just the two songs that I've seen on Spotify, you've already got quite a big listenership, like 7,000 followers, 20 odd thousand plays. So you're doing something right.
well, I
And
appreciate it. Yeah.
like I say, if you've got the voice, you've got the harmonies, like why not, man? Why not? And
Yeah.
it's in a country music is definitely a market where you
Well,
could
yeah,
succeed.
I mean, for me though, I mean, I do really well. And like it's this trading, and doing the investment stuff. And, I also run technical analysis at our firm as well. So I do a lot of charting and stuff like that, which is a whole nother boring subject.
Hmm.
But, I do enjoy what I do. And it was my dream to do that since I was a kid. Music to me was fun.
Hmm.
Um, and it would be a tough decision. Um, but financially too, it would be a lot
And
to
that's the thing.
overcome. Yeah, it would be a lot to overcome, to be a musician full time. And it's my wife's dream. So we're focused on making that happen for her too. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, to never give up on your dreams. Um, because what else are you going to live for? I mean,
yeah,
we we definitely don't dream of the stars. We just dream of being able to create content and music and do things like this, and not have to worry about the bills. That's all. That's
right.
all. It's not about being famous or having any kind of power. It's just really about being able to get up and say, what am I going to do today? What can I create today? It's like the most
Yeah.
beautiful feeling in the world.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
still learning a lot too, Ryan. I give a lot of credit to Diana, who's doing all that great production work over there. And by the way, I really do love your song Daydream. I listen to
yeah.
it daily.
Why?
I'll tell you why.
That is the song. Tell me why, and I'll tell you.
There was a point in my life where my wife and we spent a lot of time in Vegas. It's
Mm,
just where we like to vacation, and she had
yeah.
her godmother out there. And it really reminds me of being in Vegas around the pool, going through the casinos and hearing
Yeah.
that background music. It's just, it's just got that feeling of vacation in Vegas and fun. It's really great. I love it, you
Well,
guys. I really do.
I really appreciate that, man. The song is just about daydreaming your way to freedom, no?
Right.
It has a positive message. Most of our songs have a positive message. The album, I mean, it's kind of, I didn't really create it in mind, but all of the songs that I wrote for Diana last year, or maybe more or less last year and at the start of this year, had that same theme about following your dreams, believing in yourself, not regretting things. All of those ideas came up in our music, but well, it's really nice that you have that association to it. I'd love to go
Yeah.
there. I've not been to Vegas.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no, it's great. It's a lot of
I,
fun.
I was just watching The Hangover again.
It's
um,
pretty
but
accurate.
it's quite a rubbish movie, but I can say for sure. Well, I'm a big boxing fan, so Vegas has always been a city I'd love to go and see a big fight.
Yeah.
Um, it just has that kind of excitement, buzz, appeal about it. Vegas. You need to get
Yeah,
more
no,
boxing back there.
we've been out there when there's been a fight. I'm not a big fan of boxing. I
Mm,
just not that I don't. I mean, I just haven't been exposed to it. But yeah, we've been out there when there was a fight. It's crazy. There's
for
a ton
sure.
of people out there.
But yeah, it always looks so exciting. The kind of the fight week, the buzz, a lot of celebrities. Back in the '90s, you would have like every cool guy in the whole of the United States there. Jack Nicholson would be there, and just
Yeah.
all these power players in Hollywood watching big fights. So yeah,
Yep.
I grew up on that. I was a big boxing fan as a kid. Um, had a question in mind there. Yeah, you were speaking to me earlier about politics and how it affects your work. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of impact that happens when there's political decisions are made. How does that affect the financial markets, and how do you actually stay informed? Because obviously today, being informed is quite a tricky
Yeah.
hurdle to navigate.
Um,
So how do you do that?
yeah. So my company does a great job of giving me the services that I need to stay informed. A lot of times I need to make sure that I'm getting things from the source. So I'm not watching Fox News or CNN
Hmm.
or stuff that's been regurgitated 10 different times. I have TVs in my office that are going 24/7, and I'm watching speeches as they happen and the actual words that are coming out of people's mouths. So I'm only making judgment on factual things that actually happen, instead of interpretations of how those things have happened. At least I like to think so anyway. You always get something in the mix that probably could create bias, but
Hmm.
the media in the United States does a great job of twisting things and turning things and making you believe things that you
Well,
probably shouldn't.
I was going to say, like, if you were having to assess these statements and how that's going to affect financial outcomes, it must have been
Right.
it must have been a nightmare in the last. I'm not going to say it was so easy in the Biden era, but in the Trump era, it must have been like every day. What's he going to say? What's going to happen next? No.
Yes and no. So I feel like both the election cycles, we got a really good picture of policy. And again, in the financial world, like when we look at earnings and things like that, and companies, they all have conference calls on their earnings releases, and they have transcripts of that. So I could actually
Hmm.
read what was said.
Hmm.
And sometimes when you read what was said,
Hmm.
or actually listen to what was said instead of
Check
listen
the
to
transcript. No?
Right. Yeah. Instead of go to an article of somebody that's interpreting it, you can make your own decisions on what actually happened and what was said. But I do feel like the last two election cycles were pretty simple. Um, both candidates, both the Biden before the Biden years and the Trump years, the policy was spelled out
Hmm.
before. I'm a little bit more nervous about this next election cycle, just because I just feel like there's some things that both candidates are not addressing, and don't want to address yet. I think in the United States we're probably closer to devaluing the dollar
Hmm.
than people want to admit. with the huge amounts of national debt that we've amassed. So and neither one of them want to address some of the main issues that need to be addressed regarding that. But I feel like in the Biden years, I could tell you right away during Biden's campaign, he told us that he was going to be rough on oil, and he told us he was going to be rough on energy companies. The Trump years were the opposite. So, when I went into my investments, I knew that we were going to get inflation during the Biden years. And I knew that we were not going to get inflation during the Trump years. Now, COVID was a wrench in everybody's program, right? Game changer and everything. But it ended up being pretty amazing for the markets in the end. But with repercussions later on, because the whole ending ended during a election cycle, and they needed to give away more money than they probably should have.
What's your without being partisan or anything, what's your expected outcome this year? I don't know if it's possible to predict because it's tightened.
I think it's tightened. I think some of the tightening might be a little bit of media.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I don't see how, just for me, I don't, and without picking sides, I don't feel like Kamala Harris being one of the most hated vice presidents by her own, president, even, he didn't like her. How she goes from that to being one of the most liked,
media spin. The media spin has been remarkable in that respect. That from the day that they announced that she was, she's amazing. Don't you know Kamala? She's amazing. But like 2 weeks before, it had been 3 years of this woman. Who is she?
Right.
She likes word salad. She loves word salad.
She does, and I feel like she had one job during her administration, and that was immigration. And she did not do a very good job at that. And that's probably the issue that's going to haunt her the most. Not that I'm keen on Trump either. I mean, Trump has good policy, but he needs to keep his mouth shut.
This has always been his problem. He speaks too much.
Right. Yeah.
But what I was going to say, it's funny how they play this game. It's constantly been this manipulation of who's saying what. There's just as from an outsider, because obviously I'm not from the US and I just see what I do, but I don't watch any of CNN or Fox or anything like that. I just kind of follow Twitter, podcasts, and develop my own opinions. It's definitely tightened. The race is going to be close. What do you think about? I'll tell you one politician that I genuinely did like was Tulsi Gabbard, and she has now aligned herself with Trump. I find that, and Kennedy Jr. as well, which is like kind of bombastic. I mean, it's quite sensational that she would leave the Democrats in the first place, and that Kennedy, the Democrats would support Trump. It's extraordinary, really.
Yeah, well, Kennedy especially is probably a huge hit to the Democratic Party. But yeah, and I'll tell you that just working with a lot of people overseas, I get to see a lot of reactions. But to be completely honest, if we go to Germany or the UK, their politics over there aren't so great.
Politics is rubbish everywhere. I mean, it's a joke everywhere. I switched off from British politics because it's not even entertaining anymore. My own opinion about politics is that it's basically a charade. So for me, US politics is like the biggest soap opera there ever was.
Yeah, no,
I've always and if I go back in history, like I would follow much differently. I was very like a big Obama fan, and I know he comes from your neck of the woods, or at least he worked a lot in Chicago. So I took it seriously until that era. But the last 10 years has just dissolved all my expectations of politicians, of what anyone's capable of changing or making good for society.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it now as like a sport. Um, like you can root for a team or you can root for another team. I don't really care who wins. I'm not American, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to watch from afar. I don't like to make too much fun because I know Americans obviously have to take it much more seriously than me.
Right. And that's everywhere. And I'll tell
But
you one thing I always say about politics is, especially in America, somewhere down the line, we got to the point where, um, it used to be, you got rich, then you got into politics as your way to give back. Now
mm,
I feel like you get into politics to get rich,
yeah,
and
and
that
then
whole
you
dynamic changed politics and democracy. And
destroyed it.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
did. It really did. And and again, that too, you were a big fan of Obama. I
Mm,
wasn't, but we shouldn't hate each other for that. So that's
that's the
I
thing.
could spell out why, and I'm sure you could spell out why, and we should listen to those things
Well,
instead
that's what
of
we used to do.
fight about it.
And
Yeah, that's
anyway,
what we used.
I would say I was a big fan of Obama, less of a fan of his now. But
Yeah,
I read his book. I actually had his book on audio tape, and I enjoyed it immensely. And that was before he was president. So I'm not. It was just about maybe a year and a half before he was elected. So it was just when he was first coming into the primaries. And I'm like, well, this guy's really cool. He speaks so well, and he's so articulate, and he's heartfelt. He
that's
seemed really genuine. But his policies and his subsequent years as president, bit of a letdown. So
Yeah. Well, that was
uh,
the thing. For me, his economic policies were not there. And I'm an economics guy first because that's what I know and that's what I do. I always feel like, if I was to describe myself politically, I'd say I'm probably very socially liberal and probably very economically conservative.
hmm.
Um, and I wish there was a good mix in between that.
A party that
Um,
represents that is not really
it
there.
doesn't exist,
No.
right? It's either one or the other, and you're taught to hate the other, which is completely wrong. So,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Especially now. Like they can't I mean neither party really is capable of putting a good representative there. It's quite embarrassing, the state of it.
no.
So
And,
it's better to move on. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into politics. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm pro Trump or pro Harris. I don't think it's a good idea to speak about these things too much. Um, Tell me though, what you said you started making music during COVID only, which is really amazing for me that you've only been doing it for such a short time. Obviously, being at home and all that probably gave you the opportunity to do it. But what was the kind of motivation specifically to start making music while we were during the pandemic?
well, I think so. There is kind of a lot of things going on. My wife had an accident in 2019 and shattered her wrist. And she had a business going on, and she kind of lost that business, and she ended up with a neurological problem that
Hmm.
affects her sympathetic nervous system, her sympathetic nerve. And we spent about a year taking care of her. She was out of work, and
Wow.
consequently, she lost that business. And when she came out of it, we kind of were nervous to travel again because I didn't know how she was going to react to the altitude changes in a plane or anything like
Hmm.
that. So there was one time where I just got up and said, "Look, we need to go somewhere and do something. You're kind of done with being cooped up. I know you don't have your business anymore, and let's just go somewhere and have fun." And I was trying to think of something to do, and I said, "Well, let's go down Route 66. Let's
Hmm.
just drive." So we drove down to Sedona, and then on our way back, she goes, "Can we stop in Nashville?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Well, I think that kind of sparked a whole thing that was inside of her, forever. And she always kind of wanted to be a musician. And, I think life kind of happened and she kind of put it aside. And she picked up a number for an artist coach and started taking lessons down there. And when she was doing that, something sparked in me. And I just said, "Look, I wanted to learn guitar." Now, at the time, I didn't think I was going to start writing songs or anything like that. And it actually took a couple of years into COVID for me to write a song. So actually what you're hearing with Heaven in the Country was probably the second song that I had ever put together. And I had significant help from both our producer, who was a co-write on that song, David Norris, and my wife, who was also a co-write on that song, which was awesome. Because I came into a room and had an idea, and she had already written a song off of these ideas and kind of gave her side of the story of how we met. And then I wanted to write my side of the story. So I took all those ideas that I had written down. And I had one song written before that, and it was kind of like an exercise in songwriting where I took like a lot of 80s song titles and kind of told the story of hanging out in a cul-de-sac in South Side of Chicago, doing stunts in the middle of our cul-de-sac on our bicycles and skateboarding. That was kind of the feeling I wanted to capture in that song. So I had a whole nother song that was kind of like a hodgepodge of 80 song titles that I wanted to tell a story with. And I did that. And then I moved to Heaven in the Country when my wife and her producer said, hey, why don't we take some of these ideas that you have and make them into a song? And that's kind of where I wrote my first one. And then it was a long time, I think, between then, maybe 8 months. And we came out with, She Left Me with the Whiskey. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we were going through all the marketing and everything with Heaven in the Country. And I was still learning how to songwrite, and I had written a whole bunch of other stuff. And, we were down in Nashville recording something for her, and her producer said, well, let's me and you do something else again. We'll do another one. So him and I wrote, She Left You with the Whiskey, or She Left Me with the Whiskey. And, right away when we wrote that song, I'm like, we got to record it. I love this song. I don't know if it really resonates with me so much. There are, depending on who you ask, and drinking and how much I drank during COVID and other things. I was a big drinker most of my life, and I quit about a year and a half ago. But I don't feel like I had that come to Jesus type moment.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, maybe my co-write did. And, some of those things came from him, but I really felt that was a song that it told a great story. And we needed to record it.
Oh, it's definitely an amazing track. I was actually going to get a whiskey for you, but it's Monday, and I'm not really a big drinker, but I like to have a drink sometimes on the show, just one. And especially with you having that song, but no, it's Monday. Yeah, better with a cup of tea tonight.
Well, I'm not going to hold it against you. I don't drink, but I don't care that we don't care that other people do.
I was never a big drinker, smoker maybe, but not such a drinker. Where I come from, alcohol is like, you get it 4 years old, you get a beer in Scotland.
Yeah.
Everyone drinks. And I hate beer.
I had an Irish great grandmother, and that's kind of the way it was. It drove my mom crazy. We would go out to eat, and my brother be like 8 and I'm like 12, and she'd be ordering beers for us, at dinner. And my mom's like, "What are you doing?" But she was from Ireland, and that's what they did.
Yeah. Definitely not for me. I hate beer. I really hate the taste of beer, and I had to grow up with that every party, every event. You want a beer? No. What? Don't like beer, please. I like peach schnapps. No, I don't. I liked lady drinks when I was 17. Then at least I developed a taste for rum. That's my tipple of choice.
Yeah, same. I was a big rum drinker before I quit. So Captain and Diet Coke was my thing.
Yeah, well, I love a Havana and Coke and a smoke. That's my demon of choice. So you tell me about Nashville, because I know that's obviously the hotbed of country music. What was it like? What is it like there specifically, and what was it like working with? You said you're working with a producer from Nashville. What are you learning from that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's so much to learn in Nashville. I mean, everywhere you turn, just insanely good musicians. It's a different world for sure. I think we have a harder time up here in Chicago finding people to work with and things like that, and even co-write with. But in Nashville, like everywhere you turn around, there's somebody just amazing. And we've been pretty lucky to fall into a pretty good crowd because, music business can spit you out and, eat you up. But, we've been pretty fortunate and we met a lot of good people. Um, the first time we went down to Nashville, we stopped in a place called Leaper's Fork, which
Mhm.
is probably about 45 minutes outside of Nashville. And we met a lot of really good people. It's kind of like a hotbed there. And that's really like, I mean, it's kind of like the Beverly Hills
Mhm.
of Nashville. And it's probably a little bit more commercialized now than it was when we first started going there. But yeah, I mean, you run into people. I got to meet a lot of people down there, and David Norris was our producer, and he's been an awesome co-write on a lot of Annie's songs and a lot of and both of my songs. And just learning, like I was just musically, I knew nothing about music. Um, so even now, like the theory behind it, I'm still learning a lot about it. And vocally, I don't feel I'm a very strong vocalist.
No,
So a lot of those
I think
tricks
you are.
and things like that had to be taught. And my producer David had some incredible patience with me, walking me through, some of those things, and it really did teach me a lot. Like maybe I'm not the best live musician, but I couldn't do what I do now without his patience and his training.
Are you thinking to do live shows? Do you want to do some live shows?
It's not that I don't. And Annie runs an open mic locally that
Mhm.
I always usually perform at.
Yeah.
But I don't see myself having the time um, to go market myself for
Mm.
doing live sets and going out and knocking on doors and, hey, can I play here? Hey, can I play there? And building that whole business end of it. I just don't have that kind of time
Yeah.
with my job.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Annie that's what she's doing. And having two gigging musicians in the house, I don't know
Mm.
how that would work because there's a lot involved in
Yeah.
that.
It's even just to do any marketing or any promotion of your work, everything takes so long. Everything, every aspect, every little detail takes a lot of time and effort. We both work full time, but we also dedicate our other time to our music and everything that we're doing with that. And it's all consuming. We'd love to give it
It,
24, 12, 14 hours a day, but it's just not
uh,
possible to do everything. And then
no,
when would you get the chance to go perform? And I don't know. Um, but it's nice to do. It's nice to dream, and I definitely
it
think you've
is.
got the talent to succeed in what you're doing.
Well, well,
We think
thank you.
you've got a great voice. So I don't know if you've only just started singing in the last few years. It's really much better than me anyway. Diana said she liked my voice, and that's why she wanted me to sing. But of course, I don't sing. I just do some comedy rap. Um, but maybe on the karaoke. I've got, actually what was the song that was the Johnny Cash Heart? That's my karaoke song.
Okay, yeah.
Um, maybe one day we'll share that. Um, so what are your obviously you got any plans to work like more closely with your wife to like release music as a duo?
I'm not really sure. If it happens organically, I think we'd do that. But right now we just kind of do our own thing. She's at a whole different level than I am, and like I said, I'm learning so much, and she's busy. She does her, she's doing her thing. So I'm not sure. Um, it's possible. I never say never, but I think our paths are really different. Like I said, she
Mm,
really is trying to make a career out of it and be out there and
yeah.
being on stage and gigging and things like that. Um, And for me, I think my path is probably going to be, um, you know, staying in the studio and learning how to record and, you know, putting together my own demos and learning that whole process. Um, you know, that's the way I kind of want to start, you know, the route that I want to go down. And I'll just keep going on my online presence and stuff like that. And probably drop songs on Spotify and maybe pitch songs to other artists. Fun fact, Annie almost, I mean, she was very close to getting a Jason Aldean cut this year. She looked at, I don't know if you've heard her song Rock in My Shoe. If you didn't,
Maybe.
it's a really cool rock. Yeah, it's got a really cool rock influence. But he took a really hard look at that song before she released it. And it was really cool. And another fun fact, I'm in the shouts, the gang shouts in the background of that song.
Well, man, I mean, maybe one of you will get to the top. Who knows? It might be you first, and she's going to be like, "How did that happen?"
You never know. You know, things are crazy in the music industry. You just never know how things are going to work out. People ask us all the time, you know, how Annie got to the place where she's at, and you know, we tell them, you know, we know a lot of other artists that are working this just as hard and doing different things, and I feel like there's a different path for everybody. Not everybody's the same. It's hard to say this is what I did, this is what you need to do.
There's
right?
no one path. It's a lot of things changed as well. In the past, it was less marketing or a different kind of marketing. Now a lot of things are on the internet and online, so it's really presenting who you are, and it's time consuming, as you say. But no, I think there's opportunity for everyone, and it just takes one song. No, you see all these people that they come from nowhere. I saw a guy on Joe Rogan last year, and he just released a song. He was like a country. I need to check his name. He was a country music guy, just singing a song on his guitar in the garden, and got like 20 million views in a month. And then he's on the Joe Rogan show saying, "Yeah, it's pretty good, no?"
Yeah,
so
I think you're talking about.
Man.
Yeah, Oliver Anthony. I think you're talking about.
That's exactly who I'm talking about.
I tell you what, I think that's a very rare thing. Just being around Nashville and seeing how things transpire out there. I feel like Annie has been on a very accelerated path. You know, where she's playing things like Soldier Field and Hard Rock Nashville, the House of Blues in Chicago. You know, she's played those big venues now, but I feel like that's a rare thing, you know, to come up so strong in the industry so quickly. Like you look at Lainey Wilson, who's, you know, been at it for 10 years before anybody knows who she is. And everybody thinks she came right on the, you know, out of nowhere, but, you know, it's not the case. I feel like there's definitely a dues being paid type theme in Nashville, more than we realize.
I saw,
you know, some of the other genres, maybe not, but
I saw a meme like that, and it was like, I'm an overnight success. It just took me 10 years to get here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't think that's exactly the case for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're almost at the hour, so I'm going to go to my last question for you. What is in the immediate horizon for you, musically? Have you got something coming out soon? Because obviously we want to do a review, get you on our playlist, because we need more Brian Meulen in our life. We've only got 2 songs at the moment. It's just not enough.
Yeah, no, there's a video. Mama's Maiden Studios put together a video for me. So a good plug for Kimmy and Mama's Maiden there. It's an amazing video. That's going to be for She Left Me with the Whiskey. So that's my immediate focus right now, is getting that video out. In the meantime, I have a lot of stuff written. And I think, you know, we had a discussion before this. Some of my network has changed, and, you know, some things have changed for me that, you know, I want to start focusing on production and doing some of the stuff myself, you know, for cost reasons and for creative reasons and a lot of other things. And I would really like to get to the point. There's a lot, and I'm going to plug some really great indie musicians out here, you know, like Jay-Z in the punk scene, EWL, Tim,
Of course.
those guys, gosh, Entropy in Motion. My God, I could go on and on. Whiskey Club.
There's so many.
These guys, they produce their own stuff. They do a great job. They put it out there. It's amazing. And like I said, I'm a new musician, so I feel like that's far off for me. With my first two songs, I had to pay the price and get it produced and have a lot of help. And I want to get to the point where I can do stuff, more on my own and put out more. But I write a lot. One of the things Annie always said was, my wife, Annie, that I was a good writer. And, I didn't necessarily kind of think of that in terms of songwriting, but, she actually enjoys me writing with her. So, if you ask about collaborating, that's probably where it happens. And, I feel like I have a lot written that I need to polish and put together and learn how to get out there. And I hope that's soon. I really do. And we're getting there. I do have a coach in Nashville that I'm working with, Paul Lyman. He, even today, this morning, we worked on, just taking the lyrics out of a song, taking the vocal out of a song and recording and putting together a vocal chain on my DAW and my interface and working with that stuff and putting it together. So, we're working toward that. And
learning all the time.
Props to you guys too. RanD, producing their own stuff. Diana back there, off screen, she's working hard and she's putting out amazing stuff. Really appreciate you guys, and I'm inspired. So,
well, that's really sweet of you to say, man. She even does the audio production on this, and she does an amazing job because I'm always about 15 feet away from the mic, and she's like, "What is this audio all about?" But, she always manages to get us sounding pretty good. It's been a pleasure, man, to speak to you, get to know you a little bit. I think it's been another pretty good episode of R&D Meets. I'm really pleased. So is there anything else that, where can we follow you? Obviously on Spotify. Where else should we check you out?
Yeah, obviously. So Brian Meulen, on Spotify. I think my name says Brian Vander Meulen.
Yeah.
We had this thing where I use the last half of my last name. My wife uses the first part of my last name. So Spotify, you can find me, Brian Meulen Music on Facebook, Instagram, and all the things. So
sweet.
Are you hearing my dog?
My dog just came into the scene as well. All right, man. Thank you so much. I will speak to you soon, I'm sure.